Before getting out any paint, you'll want to map out a grid in the proportions given in the assignment on a sheet of Bristol board. Because we'll cut these strips out to mount them, I'm using a leftover half sheet. We're going to use the 12-step color wheel by Itten in your textbook for this. There's a good deal of equipment to organize for working with paint, and to use it at home, I'll stress having cardboard or drop cloth or plastic is key for keeping things in shape. We're going to use these primary colors, red, yellow, blue, and then we'll need to mix the secondary colors. To start, I'll just put out a couple of dime-sized piles of yellow and light red so we can mix our secondary orange hue. This is a good exercise to get acquainted with paint because we don't have to put out a full palette like we might use to make an artwork. Paint is a material made up of pigment, binders, and fillers. Because it's not in the pure space of light, the subtractive pigment-based colors will have different properties. Paint colors come mostly from various minerals, dirt, metals, so some are stronger and some are weaker. You'll see as I mix together the yellow and red that it takes much more yellow to affect the red. Tinting strength refers to the mixing power of a color. The red has a high tinting strength, so a little of it will modify the yellow a great deal. This is a knowledge you'll be able to carry over when you're putting out paint to use to make your designs and have to understand what proportions you might need. So as I've used up all my yellow and a little red, I feel I'm getting close to the orange on my color wheel. So I'll check it to see, and I think it looks good. I think we're about there. So for this exercise, we're going to make a 12-step transition from fully saturated pure color to white. So first I paint in the orange that I just mixed, using the small flat brush to spread the paint on, and then once that's done with this kind of hummingbird 5 times sped up action, then I'll paint the other end of the scale. Adding white to a color is called tinting, and the hues with white added may be called tints. To make this lightest color swatch, I wipe off my knife and add just a small amount of orange to white. Notice I mix paint with the bottom of my knife, pushing paint down into the surface of the palette, like buttering bread. If I scoop it to the top of the knife, more like a spoon, I'll swirl color around but can't control it. The paint is always pushed, scraped, and scooped with the bottom of the knife edge. The color should be the lightest in which I can perceive color. And here I can see the yellow-orange warmth, but have a lightness nearly indistinguishable from the white Bristol board. The eye can perceive more nuance of color at that light end of the value scale, more so than at the darker end. So here I've laid in the color. I'm applying it fairly liberally. One good way to do this task of creating this gradient, a smooth gradient, a 12-step transition or color progression, is to locate the visual middle or mid-tone between saturated orange and white. If I subdivide and fill in between those steps in this way, it will shorten my steps and I'll be able to sort of anticipate how to move from one to the next. So move from top end to bottom, then fill in at the middle, and then fill in between those steps, and thereby achieve a smooth gradient. If instead I were to just progressively lighten the color square by square, it's almost impossible to anticipate the amount of change needed to end up where you want to be at the end. when we're mixing, we're trying to build experience to anticipate color interactions and changes. Mixing is less relevant in additive and light-based systems like RGB in our vector designs because you almost always use a color picker there or pre-designed palette spectrums, gradients that are preset. But in subtractive systems like paint, you're in an impure space where the theory and science are inexact. You try things by degree. We're working within a very closed system here for this intro with two colors mixed to make a third, and then that color modified by white, and then then graphed out in a regular gridded sequence. There's a lot to learn here, but this is just the start.